Welcome, brave listeners, to Wilhelm Presents Frightening Tales. I'm your host, Wilhelm. Tune in each week where I entertain my listeners with another dark and creepy tale of the paranormal, donated by authors from all over this world. If you are an author of some paranormal fiction and would like to share a story with my listeners, submit one at frighteningtales.com. And while you're there, tune in for more than 120 episodes of previous content. And now, today's tale, written by A.G.R, a graduate of Florida International University and a writer and author. He majored in interdisciplinary studies and has minors in philosophy and sociology, which provided him with knowledge in various areas and research skills. His interests in writing are horror and mysteries. A.G.R.'s other interests are video games, paranormal research, and reading. When he is not writing, he gives ghost tours and tells ghost stories. A.G.R.'s work has been featured in literary magazine God's Cruel Joke. A link will be provided in the notes. Ever wonder what happens inside the houses no one pays attention to? The ones that stand out, leaving no mark on you. You've probably seen thousands of these homes every day. Some even in your neighborhood. What secrets do they hold? What horrors do they hide? 101 Mason Street is one of those houses. On the outside, it appears to be just a basic two-story colonial. Even its color palette does nothing to attract the eye. The lawn is well kept, with a healthy oak in the front yard. On the surface, everything looks normal, just a little too normal, as if it were trying its best to hide. If you can manage to garner more than a glance, oddities start to appear. The house's measurements appear irregular and off. The house will grow and shrink at random intervals. Even the windows change shape in the blink of an eye. The lines and corners of the house misalign ever so slightly. Those who observe the inside will find odd figures appearing by the windows, some seeming to walk from one floor to the next instantaneously. The strangeness oozes into the very history of the house. 101 Mason looks the same, regardless of the age in which it was depicted, both in artistic rendering and photography. There is no evidence of renovations or even the oak tree's growth. There has never been a single occupant, permanent or temporary, residing in that house. Curiouser still is that there is no one on record building or designing it. If you didn't see it with your own eyes, you would not find any proof of its existence at all, except for these stories. Though the stories of the house are numerous, the earliest one with concrete information is the tale of James Ball. James Ball was a common occupant of the various bars in town, an unemployed barfly who sticks to his seat from opening till he is forced out by the staff. As James's drinking worsened, the number of friends he had steadily decreased. till the bottle was his only companion. The only thing he still cared about. His lack of concern extended to those who shared the road with him. James drove around town completely plastered. The fact that he was never pulled over or killed anyone was a testament to his pure, dumb luck. Unfortunately for Mr. Ball, luck always runs out. For him, it ran out on Mason Street. One evening, James went on one of his drunken joy rides through town, never to be seen again. His car was later found crashed into the old oak in front of 101. An examination of the vehicle found several unidentifiable scratch marks and dents focused on the driver's side of the car. The only evidence of James's fate was a blood trail leading from the car to the front door of the house. The police investigated the trail, finding it ceases right at the threshold to 101 Mason Street. The police looked inside the house for hours with no trace of James ever being inside except for what would be identified as James's fingernails deep in the wood of the doorframe. There was a week-long search for the man, with no leads to his whereabouts. James's car was taken by a tow truck, and the driver remembered there was no sign of damage to the tree. The mangled front end of the car seemed more in line with impacting a concrete pillar at high speed, not an old oak tree. James Ball remains missing to this day, forgotten by the town along with any mentions of 101. Or maybe it is something no one wants to ponder on. The next event involves the Hughes brothers, and it all starts with a dare. Michael Hughes and two of his longtime friends dared each other to spend 3 hours in a house on Mason Street, selected due to stories shared about the address. The house chosen was 101, believed by the boys to be empty. Stephen Jacobs and David Nicholas went with Michael to the house. Stephen and David were more enthusiastic about entering the house due to their love of horror movies and ghost stories. Michael was said to be more hesitant, requiring a push to get over the threshold. They all entered the house at the same time, but within a couple of moments the boys were separated. Stephen was always bewildered by that. As he stated, his hand was on Michael's shoulder the whole time they entered the house. Stephen managed to last 30 minutes in the house before hastily exiting. He stated he had felt a presence following him as he walked through the house, always at his back. Things repeatedly appeared out of the corner of his eye, till it became too much for him and he left the house. Stephen remained outside waiting for his friends. He didn't care what they said. There was no way he would spend another moment within those walls. David was the next to leave, lasting a whole hour before barreling out of the house. He was hysterical and ran at a full sprint back to his home, racing past his waiting friends in a blur. Stephen tried to keep pace with David, but despite being one of the best runners at the school, he could not gain ground on his friend. David made it all the way home before falling unconscious. When he did finally awake, His memory was completely blank. He didn't even recall entering the house. As for Michael, he never made it out of the house. Searches of the place turned up nothing. Not a trace that the boy was ever in the house. There were attempts to jog David's memory with a variety of methods, in hopes he could explain Michael's disappearance. The last attempt was through the use of hypnosis. When he went under, he came out screaming for hours to the point his vocal cords failed, leaving him mute. The police ran out of leads and the case closed nearly as mysteriously as it opened. They labeled Michael as a runaway due to his broken family life. Mother dead, father a deadbeat. It seemed like the most logical conclusion. Not many looked at the event twice, except for his brother, Matthew Hughes. He was a good kid by all accounts, a little reclusive, but a great student and caring brother. Then his brother disappeared and he lost the last good thing in his life, leading to a downward spiral. Reclusion evolved into antisocial behavior. His grades descended into a free fall, progressing into vandalism and the arson of more than a few properties. Many believed it was his way of getting back at the town. A few assumed that those fires were test runs for his true target. He was last seen entering 101 Mason Street with a bunch of chemicals and a torch. No one knows what happened inside. The only fire reported that day was a man engulfed in a bright green flame screaming for mercy. His smoldering corpse found collapsed on the road leaving Mason Street. Despite the best efforts of passerby and the fire department, the fire could not be extinguished. The body was cremated on the spot, leaving dust and a single photo. It depicted the Hughes brothers smiling arm in arm during better times, completely untouched by the flames. The most curious case of the house involves couples Joseph Simmons, Amy Payne, and Theo Henson and Kimberly Price, shortly after leaving their school prom. Joseph Simmons was a football star and school heartthrob. All the ladies liked Joe, but he only had eyes for Amy, a bright but timid girl, gifted student, thrust into popularity by her relationship with Joe. Theo was a ruffian, a longtime friend of Joseph, and kind to Amy. Kimberly Price was a trust fund kid and town princess who didn't like Amy at first, till she needed help with her classes. The four went to prom together and planned the after-prom event. It was said Theo had been bragging about his intentions for 101 as an after-party rendezvous. The group was last seen leaving the prom. They were just gone. No evidence of the couple's fate was ever discovered, and not even their cars were found. Not unlike other disappearances with 101, the case of the disappearing prom-goers went cold quickly and remained that way for 2 decades, till one day, when Amy Payne appeared on the doorstep of her former home, just standing there, comatose. She was quickly taken to the hospital for examination and treatment. She looked like she hadn't aged a day. Many of the doctors and staff couldn't believe it was the same girl. Her identity was confirmed, though, through dental records and fingerprints, which were a perfect match. Further examination of her body found wounds and scars that were unidentifiable. Nothing, animal or material, could explain them. Her dress was found to have the blood from several individuals, and makeshift bandages that appeared to be made from Kimberly Price's dress. The most disturbing finding was the fresh traces of human tissue in her teeth, and DNA matched to Joseph Simmons. There also appeared to be unidentified organic tissue under her fingernails. Amy awoke from her comatose state with no warning or sign. Gone was the timid, hard-working student. Now in her place stood a violent, feral being. She mercilessly attacked the hospital staff almost as if she were fighting for her very life. There seemed to be nothing human in the girl anymore, just the instinct to survive. She jumped onto one nurse and gouged out her eyes. An orderly tried to get the girl off the nurse. The man was large and muscular, but had a difficult time restraining the petite girl. She used her teeth to escape his grasp, tearing out a chunk of flesh from his arm. Eventually, more orderlies came to assist, as the doctor administered heavy sedatives. The doctor ordered that Amy be moved to an asylum for proper treatment and security. That was the last anyone ever saw of Amy Payne. The ambulance was found crashed just outside of Mason Street. It showed signs of being flipped over. The front appeared to have massive dents, and scores of metal had been torn from the side of the vehicle. Both paramedics were dead, one strangled with his seatbelt and the other had her throat clawed out. Amy was missing, her restraints torn off, but it can't be determined whether by her or an external force. No one knows what the house is or how these events are connected to it. Is it haunted, evil, or something far beyond our comprehension? All that can be known for sure is if you find yourself walking Mason Street, give the house with the number 101 a wide berth. Avert your eyes and move quickly, or you may become the next mystery.
Thank you, brave listeners, for joining me today. Please join me again next week for another frightening tale, or listen to one of more than 100 previous episodes. If you enjoyed your time here, please support my work. If you've been watching on YouTube, like the episode and subscribe to the channel. If you've been tuned in on Apple Podcast, please rate the channel as you see fit. And if you've been listening to the program on Spotify, I'd love to hear your comments. Most of all, share frightening tales with those around you and support today's authors however you can. Until next time, when I share with you another frightening tale, listen, if you're brave enough.